Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cats Whiskers TV podcast. My name is Jono Bullard. I will be joined by Aaron Lord and Andy Haywood this week, and I'll also be talking to fourth line wing, or Paul Wheeler, about Panthers' upcoming game with the Coventry Blaze at the NIC on Sunday. We'll also be looking back at Panthers games at the weekend. 3 points out of 4, not bad. Well, some may say different. I'll also be having a little bit of a rant, the stuff that's been appearing on the Cage Forum recently, and we'll be also discussing the other talking points within the Elite League, including Danny Bois and Zach Fitzgerald's coming together, shall we say, on Friday night. And we'll also be discussing Mark Lefebvre's departure from the Coventry Blaze. But it's over to the Bunkers Hill Inn, where both Aaron, Andy and myself were discussing Panthers weekend. We're in the Bunkers Hill Inn after a overtime defeat by the Dundee Stars. I'm with Andy Haywood.
Hello.
And Mr. Aaron Lord.
Good evening.
Well, guys, that was disappointing, I think we'll say, especially after battling hard and getting 2 points away in Fife last night. Of course, big news that Craig Kowalski wasn't fit enough, so Dan Green took his place in the lineup. I suppose I'll start with this question. Did Dan Green being in the lineup cost us a possible victory?
Oh, wow. No, I don't think so. I thought he played alright. He made some decent saves. The first goal that was conceded was deflected right in front of him. You know, any goalie would struggle with that, let alone save it. The second goal was a rush where we got a defenceman still in their zone. You'd got Lawrence throwing hit on a player that wasn't anywhere near anything, and the guy who scored it had, used his brain, and he went on Clarkie's side where Clarkie was defending. Clarkie's not a defenceman, he don't know what he's doing back there, and it was an easy goal, as it were. The third goal was a howler. I made no words about it. It's a soft goal that he would want back. But then the game-winning goal in overtime, Berube pinches in, loses the puck, and Dundee go on a 3-on-1. He makes the initial save, and then Matt Ryan puts him a rebound. That's not Dan Green's fault. So to me, 3 of the 4 goals are not his fault. I thought we battled for a point, but to be honest, I kind of feel like we were the better team. I thought we had the better chance and the better spell in the attacking zone. The Stars, obviously they won, so they played a really good game plan, but they very much seemed to concentrate on just trying to catch us on the break. Matt Ryan was very high all night, and they iced the puck numerous times trying to find that stretch pass. And at the end of the day, it works, so it's a great tactic. But I think overall the team performance, probably from a whole, I thought we were slightly better. But at the end of the day, we only got 1 point out of it, so that's all that matters.
Aaron, should we be worried, even though we're only, I think 2 points behind the leaders? Obviously, as we record this, the Steelers-Coventry game is still going on. But is there still too much negativity around this team?
My initial reaction would be yes, but it's very hard to kind of watch that game and then come and speak and be positive about the team in one way. I mean, I don't think we've got a bad team. I don't think all the negativity that is around and you read on the Cage and on Twitter and stuff like that is justified. We're just struggling at times, and tonight's game wasn't pretty. I think, look, Dundee got the 2 goals, and then they kind of just sort of said, right, well, you break us down, we've got a 2-goal lead, it's up to you to get the goals, and we struggled, and it's frustrating, and it's not great to watch at times. But I kind of get where what Andy's saying in the sense of we were the better team, because Dundee, once they sort of got in front, they weren't interested in adding to the scoreline, which they don't have to. They're 2-0 up or whatever. It was more a case of icing it several times, like like Andy said, so it wasn't great to watch from that point of view. But I don't know, it's not the greatest of games. It is frustrating, and there'll be people on the cage will be loving that result, and you'll read it all on there, and they'll be saying that they told you so, and this is just the beginning of the end for us. I totally disagree with that, but you can't sort of turn around and say that we were fantastic tonight, because we weren't.
Okay, to sort of move over to a bit of a positive, and last night's game in Fife. I mean, I watched on the webcast. I think both you guys did as well. I've got to say, I thought Chris Higgins had a fantastic game last night in Fife. Two superb assists, battled all night, was making chances, was making room, and that's what we wanted to see from him. And obviously, with the injuries he's had, we've not seen that from him so far, but now I think we're starting to see the Chris Higgins that we saw in Belfast last year.
Yeah, I know, that's great to see. I think everyone would look at the team when we first signed it and say that whilst he's not a like-for-like player, because he doesn't have that edge, he was always going to be the playmaker. He was always going to be like the new David Ling that we didn't have necessarily last year. He was always going to, from the outset, everyone was mouth was watering at the prospect of having Higgins and Bruce Graham on the same line, and they started that first CHL game together, and then the knee went, and it's been a long hard slog for him to get back, but I think we are finally seeing flashes of him again, and it looks like a really good line. He's played really well with Lakovic. Obviously 2 assists on Lako's goals last night and again tonight, and he's really starting to show his worth.
Aaron, of course, going to Fife and getting the victory, but they were in the same situation that we were in tonight, of course, having to not only draft in one netminder but two, with both their first choice and backup, Blair Daly, being injured. But as the saying goes, you can only beat what's put in front of you.
Yeah, and I think, not to harp on it, but I think there'll be several people out there saying that we only won last night because Fife didn't have their netminders in net. But it's a great 2 points for us up there, and I thought we played actually rather well. I thought it was a good performance from the Panthers. I think having Perron back in the lineup just adds a little bit more grit. He's something that I think people kind of don't underestimate, but just look at that might not be important for us. But I think he actually will be an important player for us. Tonight he won quite a few face-offs for us, which we've struggled in so far in the season. But from last night's point of view, yeah, you can only beat what's put in front of you, and overall on the weekend it's a big 2 points that we picked up last night. We've picked up we've got a point tonight, 3 out of 4. It's not the end of the world, when you look at other results as well. So I still think there's more to come from this side, though. You talk about Higgins, and I think we've seen, like Andy said, flashes of what Higgins can do, but I don't think he's match fit at the moment. I don't think he's 100%, which you fully understand, because he's just had those niggly injuries that sometimes take a little bit longer to get back from as well. So I think I think there's more to come from Higgins, and it'll be interesting to see for me what line Higgins eventually comes on, because everybody says at the start of the season it's Graham, it's Benny, it's Higgins, but like Andy says, he's been linking up really well with Lako, and I think that might even become the line that you see, Higgins, Lako and Graham. So I think it's interesting to see, and I just think there's more to come from the Panthers. Yes, there's reasons to be frustrated, there's reasons to be down, but there's more to come.
I think it's interesting what you say about Higgins and Lakovic, because Lakovic has scored 3 goals this weekend and Higgins assisted on all 3 of them. So maybe they've built up a really good working relationship in training, and that's something we'll see for the rest of the season. So that is something to be positive about. Okay, one final question. 3 points out of 4 this weekend. 4 points would have been, I won't say expected, but would have been desired. But is a 3-point weekend all that bad? bad?
No, it's good. At the end of the day, everyone, to go back to what you say with the whole, Fife were missing their starting netminder, but you can only beat what's put in front of you. Obviously, when we beat Fife with their backup netminder, the whole league looks at it and says, it's the backup netminder, that's why they won. But by the same token, that's what's happened tonight. I think, all in all, realistically, if we'd have took a point in Fife yesterday and won today in Dundee, there would be you'd still get negativity on the cage. That's a given. But generally, there would be no negativity. But because we got the win last night and it's for 1 point today, that's where the negativity will come from. Because we've dropped a point at home, which you can say, you can understand, and you've got to go to these places and win games, and you've got to beat all the teams if you're going to win the league. But to say how close we are behind the league leaders with games in hand, it's staggering to me, the reaction of this team. It really is.
Yeah, I think Andy makes a great point there, in the sense of if we did get a point last night and 2 tonight, I think everybody would have been happy. So I think that's a really spot on point. But what was your initial question?
Is a 3-point weekend really that bad?
No, it's not. Look, let's be honest. On Friday night, when Sheffield beat Brayhead, Sheffield won the league. Let's be honest. From the reaction, that's it was.
I'm an unwilling combatant in that opinion.
Yeah, but that was the initial reaction, was that Sheffield are now going to walk this league. They've completed everything. They've got the perfect signing in that Danny Bois, or however you pronounce it, and that's the final jigsaw in Sheffield Steelers Elite League Championship winning team of 2014-2015, to quote somebody off the cage. And what do? They go and lose the next night. It'll be topsy-turvy. It'll be happy one day, one night. It'll be miserable the next. Yes, we need to find a bit of consistency when we go and winning Fife. We do need to, we really should be getting the 2 points the next day just to get that consistency. But it's not a given. You have to go out there and earn it. And 3 points out of 4 ain't bad.
That was last night in the Bunkers Hill Inn. I'm delighted to say that both Aaron,
hello,
and Andy,
evening,
join me again. We're going to look at a couple more things from the weekend. We might discuss the Danny Bois incident on Friday, but then again we might not. but we're going to talk about everything else that happened in the Elite League and a few other things. But first, before we begin in earnest, we mentioned last night about the negativity on the Cage Forum, and today it's probably come to a head a bit. Last night I got home, I was looking at the game thread from the Dundee Stars game, and I must admit the negativity got the better of me, and against probably my better judgment, I posted, and I really shouldn't have done, but I did. A poster came back to me. I actually did a longer post about how I feel and the way I see things. We're 2 points from the top of the league, and that is a fact, and I personally can't see much to get negative about that. This has taken a bit more of a turn today. I was told that I know what the players get paid. I haven't got a clue. I have no idea about any costs, any wages of any players of Nottingham Panthers. A post this afternoon, though, really did annoy me, and I had to respond to it. You can see it on the Cage thread for the Stars Panthers game if you wish to have a look at it. Basically, I was accused of biting my lip on things that Panthers are concerned because of this show, and I don't want to upset the club. That couldn't be further from the truth. We have never ever been frightened to criticise the club where we feel there needs to be criticism on this show. I did respond to that post, and I put forward my position. Now, I want to make an open offer. If you are a regular reader of The Cage, you probably saw that I made an open offer to any poster on there, whether in the positive or negative camp, to to come on this show and debate it, talk about it. Let's talk about how we feel about the team. Why do some people think that we're not doing that well? Why do other people think we're doing okay? Let's have a proper grown-up adult debate about it. Let's get from behind usernames, let's get from behind the keyboard, and let's do it in an adult fashion. I had no responses to that thread. No messages. Nobody actually decided to put their head above the parapet and come on this show and discuss the way they feel. Now, I appreciate by doing this show, those of us who are involved in this show put our heads above the parapet. We are probably quite well known amongst a lot of the Panthers fan base. I appreciate I am there to get shot at because I sometimes have the opinions that I do. However, what I don't accept is if people disagree with those opinions, come and talk to me. Tell me why. Debate with me. I won't bite your head off. You know, I'm quite happy to go for a beer with anybody and chat about the Panthers. So, I am going to make, on this show tonight, exactly the same proposition that I put on the cage last week. And that is, if anybody wishes to come and have a debate about why they feel so negatively about the Panthers at the moment, then please let me know. I am happy to do a special show anytime, wherever. I've got a digital voice recorder if you can't get over Skype. I will do it anytime you please. Get from behind your keyboards, get from behind the safety of your usernames, and let's have an adult debate. That is all I have to say on the matter. Gentlemen, anything you would like to add?
I thought you said you only was going to talk for a minute, Jono.
Sorry, I got the better of myself there. It was like a can of Pringles. Once I started, I couldn't stop.
Right, what would I like to say? Well, I'll back you up on the offer that you say, and as a regular member of the Cats Whiskers, I'd gladly talk to anybody about the Panthers in general. So, that offer accounts for me as well. And I think, as part of the show, like you've just said, we're not affiliated with the club. We don't have any special information. We're just fans that are passionate about the Panthers, and if we think they've done good, we'll say they've done good. If we think they could have done better, we'll say that. So the cage, I don't know where this whole negativity is coming from, to be honest. Yes, we're not seeing the sexy Nielsen hockey that we're used to, and there are certain points that I can see why they're being made. I think everybody kind of knows that we're not scoring the goals, and you could say that needs, there's a goal scorer there, but it's kind of gone beyond those suggestions for me. Negativity is too weak a word in a way. It's actually kind of like accusing the club of this, accusing the coach and the players of this. It's not a general view. So, and I just don't know where the negativity has come from. But I'll just end on that little bit by kind of just saying what you said. And I think it's very easy for people to write things online. Behind a username, behind the safety of a computer screen. But the fact is, we offered that opportunity and nobody took it. And it's all right saying, why don't we speak to Gary Moran and, Neil Black or Corey Nielsen? But, when the fans don't even take up the opportunity, why should we do that to a certain degree? So I think, you've just offered the opportunity again, and let's see if anybody does, but I won't hold my breath. Andy.
Like I say, I can only echo what you guys have said. I mean, I'm probably slightly more different than you guys in the sense that I would probably put myself in the whole sort of happy clapper category. And at the end of the day, everybody will have a different opinion about anything. And people disagree, but it's not so much the other people's opinions. It's the manner of it all. It's for refusing to listen to another side of a story, and it's for is just the constant bashing of the club as being. It's almost like they're believing that the club's being more like a sinister object. There's reasons as to why they're doing this and they're doing that, and can't you see that they're just fleecing the fans and stuff? Well, if that's the case, if that's how you genuinely feel that you're not getting your value for money, it's the same with all things. You don't have to pay it.
Absolutely. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yes.
So, coming out of the weekend, I suppose the big story is about Craig Kowalski and his fitness. From a report that's come out today, it appears that it's not the same injury that it has kept him out the previous few games when Matthias Modig came in, so it seems it's a completely different injury. This is going to be a difficult thing to say, because Craig Kowalski is a bit of a legend at this club. There's no doubt about that, with the titles he's backstopped us to. However, is it time that we may have to look at possibly getting a replacement?
Yeah, I think realistically we've been lucky with K-Wall in the sense that he wasn't going to stay here for as long as he has originally. Pretty much all the contracts that he signed seem to be sort of 1 or 2 years with the possibility of an extension depending on his life. Obviously, with him becoming a father last year and the injuries that he had last year, there was part of me surprised to see him re-sign this season, because I just thought that with his lifestyle now and his family, I thought that it might be an ideal time for him to say, I've had my fun, I've had my bit, I'm going to go back home. And I'm not going to say that he should have done that, because when he was re-signed, I was as happy as the next man, because obviously I've only been coming 14 years, so I can't remember Trevor Robbins, but he's the best goalie I've ever seen play for Panthers, and certainly in the top 3 for me that I've ever seen play in this country. So when we re-signed him, I was happy. I just think with the injuries that he's had over the past couple of seasons, and especially this last one, obviously we don't know where this latest one is, but the last one's with his groin being the area, in a position where you are the goalkeeper, and the flexibility and the stuff like that, and groins are notoriously a dodgy area for injuries once you get them. I just feel that there is the chance that the end of the season might not be the time when K-Wall decides to call it a day. At the end of the day, he's a fighter, and he's a winner, and he's a champion, and he might want to battle through and keep going. What I would say is that whilst I do agree with the whole there's no place for sentiment in the sport, and we can't just keep him on because of what he's done in the past, if he is fit, he's still the best goalie for us.
Yeah.
It's just making sure that he is fit. So I fully expect that he'll be undergoing tests all this week. I would anticipate, obviously I have no idea, but I would anticipate and like to think that there are talks going on in case he's not fully fit for the weekend, with other options and other goalkeepers. Obviously Modig's been mentioned a lot by various people. Again, rumours only, but from what I heard was that he was on a contract to replace Kowalski while he was injured. It was only ever a short contract, and as much as he enjoyed it, he's a young goalkeeper who was playing top flight Swedish Elite League. He wanted that chance to get back into being a top goalie, and so didn't want to hang around longer than he had to. So when K-Wall was announced fit, that was when we decided that it was time to let him go, so that he could fulfil what he wants to do with his life. Because contrary to popular belief, not everybody wants to play for the Panthers. So I think that we'll be in talks with various people, various contacts. Modig might be one if the injury is literally just a niggle and they didn't want to risk it for the long term. Then we might see Modig come back for another week. But I just think if K-Wall is 100% fit, and you can't plan for the future and future injuries. But if he is 100% fit, he'd be the one for me, purely because he's exceptional.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Andy covered pretty much everything there. I think one thing that I would just say is, I think this injury is obviously a wait and see. We're a little bit unknown. We don't know. There's no kind of notice on the actual injury, how long he will be out for. I think Andy's right in the sense of, I'm sure the club will be in contact with, agents, clubs, etc. And I don't know. I also think maybe Kwal might think about this. It's no player likes to get injured, and if it's it's obviously within that kind of leg area because they're seeing whether it's connected to the groin injury that he picked up previously. So it's obviously in that vicinity. But Kwal might look at it and go, do you know what? I can't offer you, i.e. the Panthers, 100% fit Craig Kowalski. So do you know what? I'll do the right thing and I'll step away because I think he has that much passion and love for the Panthers. But it's obviously an area that is there's going to be movement in, whether that's the sense of Kwal is announced fit and he's ready for the weekend, or there's a new guy come in. Just very quickly, these people that go, well, we should have kept Modic because it was crazy to think Kwal was going to last the weekend. With all due respect, if you are announced fit, you are announced fit. They wouldn't play him if he wasn't 100% fit. So the fact that he got a niggle or he on Sunday he didn't pass a fitness test, and for fans to think, well, it's the Panthers' fault, is crazy. A backup netminder is there to back up that starting netminder. So the fact that Dan Green played on Sunday is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous in the sense of fans saying that the club should have foreseen this happening or whatever. It's crazy. If you're pronounced fit, you're pronounced fit. And I mean, it would be. I'd like to see Modic back if Kwal is on the injury list for quite a few weeks. But I fully if he isn't, then you can understand his reasons, like Andy pointed out. But it's obviously an area, like I say, that we'll probably be talking about once again in the season, I think.
Absolutely. Okay. Moving on then, and of course probably one of the biggest talking points over the weekend was an incident that happened again between Braehead Clan and Sheffield Steelers in their match on Friday night. So between Zach Fitzgerald of the Clan and new signing Danny Bois of the Sheffield Steelers. It has seen Zach Fitzgerald get a 2-game ban from Dops. However, there's quite a lot of controversy about that. I've seen a lot of Sheffield fans saying, it was a sucker punch. Can't agree with that, quite frankly. People said that Bois had his arms by his side. He was a sitting duck. I don't agree with that either, because for me, it was Bois who started the altercation by dragging Fitzgerald out of the scrum. Now, of course, Fitzgerald gets a 2-game ban, and to be fair, he has given Danny Bois a concussion. He took no further part in the weekend after the incident on Friday. Guys, and Andy, I'll come to you first. What is your take on the whole situation?
Well, I completely disagree with the decision, basically. I would be really interested to see what players were on the ice at the actual final buzzer, what 5 players on each team were on the final buzzer, because the video that I've seen sort of comes in where the scrum's already happened and there's a few sort of extra players lurking about before they all sort of pair up. But from what I've seen, obviously, I believe it's Cullen Eddy and Derek Rowe are having chat. They're pushing and shoving. Zach Fitzgerald's job as a tough guy, he skates over to see what's happening. He grabs hold of Cullen Eddy so that Derek Rowe doesn't have to get involved, basically, because he's doing his job. Derek Rowe gives him a couple of pushes, and it's nothing more than that. A couple of glove punch, maybe, but on the video it said that Fitzgerald had hold of Cullen Eddy. That meant he was unable to protect himself from punches thrown by Derek Roll. You know, you see scrums like that all the time in hockey, and nothing gets called for it. So there's Derek Roll wouldn't have got called for a penalty for anything he did there. And if he did, it'd have been like a 2+2, a 2 each for roughing type scenario where they put them both in the bin. So obviously Fitzgerald's got hold of Cullen Eddy, and Danny Bois has come over doing what I presume is his role with the type of player that he is, to make sure that Cullen Eddy is being protected. Now he's come from behind Fitzgerald, which I don't have a problem with. He gives him a little glove punch to the back of the head. Again, I don't have a problem with it. It's not like he's thrown a haymaker to the back of an unsuspected opponent. He's just let him know he's there. Then he's grabbed him from behind. They've wrestled for a bit. They then turn face to face. They circle out of the scrum towards the centre of the ice. Fitzgerald drops his gloves and throws a punch, which doesn't particularly land. Bois then immediately drops one of his gloves and tries to get free himself. He manages to get rid of his other glove, so now he's dropped his gloves. He's swung at exactly the same time as Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald lands, knocks him down to the ice, and he's been ruled a 2-game ban because Bois was unwilling. And to me, it's shocking. It really is. These are two guys doing their job. They both knew what they were doing. I've seen things on various forums and social media saying that Danny Bois was ordered that he wasn't allowed to fight and stuff like that, which is fair enough. Coaches have that type of thing, but there's certain instances where common sense prevails. If he was ordered not to fight and he gets involved just trying to look after a teammate, why does he not tie up the guy as opposed to circling around trying to get free himself? Why does he move away from the linesman? Why doesn't he stay close to them so that if anything happens, he's protected by them as well as himself? I just think that this guy has been around the game long enough, doing the role that he's done long enough to know that these things happen. Obviously, the guy's been concussed, and that's bad news. That's not a good thing for Danny Bois. It's not a good thing for Sheffield. To be fair, I don't think it's a particularly good thing for Fitzgerald, because obviously he's injured somebody. And no matter how much these players try to punch lumps out of each other, no one goes with the intention of deliberately concussing a player. And I just think that it's that whole using the penalising thing on the outcome as opposed to the actual actions. And that's why I disagree with it from a personal standpoint, is because I just think if he falls over, gets knocked down, falls over, jumps straight back up, they carry on scuffling for a bit, or they land a punch each for a bit, nothing gets done. They both get a game penalty for doing it at the buzzer, and that's fine. Likewise, if Bois connects with Fitzgerald and knocks him down, would Fitzgerald be looking at having Bois suspended for 2 games? I just think it's a real dicey thing to be getting involved in fights and banning players for fighting when clearly, as I've seen on the video, 2 guys have dropped the gloves.
Aaron, I think that the 2 words that came out of the weekend was unwilling combatant. And from the video, it seems to me that Bois is anything but an unwilling combatant. He was getting himself into a scrap. I mean, you don't grab someone by the neck, pull them away, give them a couple of taps, and then be called an unwilling combatant. And that's where I disagree with the DOPS summary of the incident.
Yeah, I mean, I think just obviously, listening to Andy there, I think the bit that I would add is that I think he was far more willing than what people actually think he was. I do think he was willing to, like Andy says, he does drop one glove, he then kind of struggles for a while with the other, and then he does drop it, so he has dropped the gloves, and I just think he kind of gave it the Billy Biggin, and then he came up against somebody that was willing to drop the gloves and kind of went straight after him and got the better of it, and he kind of then just sort of didn't want to be involved anymore. But I'm sorry, when you drop the gloves, you drop the gloves. You know, you don't expect the other opponent to then kind of go easy on you. It's people's role on teams. It's you know, people drop the gloves for a certain reason in a game. So I kind of, you know, agree with Andy in the sense of I disagree with. Or I think Fitzgerald has been hard done by, you know, and I think, you know, not being controversial here or whatever, but I think the only people that disagree with that will be Sheffield fans.
Yeah. Of course, Braehead went on to lose the game, Sheffield winning that game, Braehead then winning the second game the next night at Braehead, so split series for them. Sheffield then winning in overtime against Coventry Blaze on Sunday. That sees them top of the league with 26 points. Braehead second with 25, having played 2 games more. Then come the Panthers, 24 points from 17, and Belfast, 23 points from 17. And coming in there, Cardiff, 21 points from 17 games also. So the Devils starting to make a push now after 2 consecutive 4-point weekends.
Well, I mean, it's fantastic that you've got 4 sides there battling for second place, because, you know, the league's already been won. So no, look, I think it's great that Cardiff have kind of not clawed their way, but are actually starting to get into the mix. You know, Belfast coming off obviously a disappointing Continental Cup weekend, but fantastic in the way of how close they actually got. So I imagine them to come back with, you know, really geared up and looking to take that form and just the confidence of how they competed into the Elite League. Obviously, you know, Panthers, we won't talk about that, but Braehead, you know, they're, like we've said before, they're going to be there or thereabouts, and the result that they picked up against Sheffield, as Finity has already said, is a massive result, and I think that will give them lots of confidence. And then, you know, there's no doubt that Sheffield have a decent roster this year, so as I've said, it's going to be topsy-turvy. You know, those 5 teams are going to swap places throughout the season. It's going to go down to the wire for me. So, and I think it's great that 5 teams are involved. It you know, it's good for the Elite League. It's good for fans. It's good. You know, I think we're in for a barnstormer of a season.
Just going back to the Giants, of course, missing out on the Continental Cup Super Final by what seems a tie-break. Now, I haven't had a chance to look at the sort of whys and wherefores why they missed out, but the sort of explanation given looked like it give anybody a headache. It seems to me, though, I think that they may have been shafted a little bit.
I read somewhere that the Grodno team needed to win by 1 goal. If they won by any more, then Belfast would have gone through.
Yeah, and
obviously, I don't know. Like, I'm the same as you. I've not read into the whys and wherefores of how this works, but that seems like a very strange scenario. A real sort of almost. I mean, a lot of things will always be said about the fact that the last game was played by 2 teams that could both go through, and the only way that they could both go through happened.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's
Germany, Austria from the 1982 World Cup all over again.
There's as good a chance as that happening as there is as any of the other chances of any of the other results happening. But you can't help but feel like there is almost some sort of dodgy doings and things like that. By all accounts, the French team played their backup netminder in a game where so much rides on it. I know from a Panthers perspective, when we went to Amiens, we lost out on goal difference against Milan, who went through to the next round. And when we played the Slovenian team, Ljubljana, we beat them. But when Milan played the Slovenian team, Ljubljana were already out. So they played their youngsters, they played the backup netminder, and they lost, I think it was like 8-0 or something like that. And you can't help feel aggrieved by these scenarios, because as much as it's nice for these guys to get the time out onto the ice, and obviously we've done it this season with Hook, Betteridge and County getting lots of ice time in the CHL. But by the same token, we never once sort of really took our foot off the gas. And they proved that they were more than capable of playing when they were on the home ice against Hamburg.
Yeah.
So, like I say, it's one of them things. Ultimately, there's no more possibility that the result that did happen could have not happened. But you can't help feeling aggrieved if you're a Belfast fan because of the way it's been done, and with it being such a strange scenario as to how it was decided as well.
Okay, well, there is no SCWTV this week because we didn't get any questions. Well, so we will move on to looking ahead to the weekend. First of all, we'll look at Panthers Coventry, which takes place on Sunday, and I spoke with former Blaze webcast commentator Paul Wheeler a little earlier. Delighted to welcome to the Cats Whiskers TV podcast a man known by many, former Coventry Blaze webcast commentator, and obviously a very, very prominent figure on Twitter, Paul Wheeler. How are you, mate?
Not too bad at all, John. How's yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So, Coventry Blaze, I know this is a subject you've had a lot to say on over the past couple of seasons, and of course Coventry come to the NIC on Sunday. Not their greatest stamping ground, it has to be said, and after a 3-1 defeat only 3 weeks ago to the Panthers, in where I think we could say they lost their discipline and lost the game, it's not going to be easy for them on Sunday afternoon.
It's really not, but I think that if there's a good time for Coventry this season to be playing Nottingham, this may well be it, because obviously you've had all the upheaval over the past week or two with the firing of the coach, and Stephen Gertson has come in and he's got a point to prove. And it was interesting on Saturday against Cardiff, before everything went to a pot in the second period, which we were told was because Brian Stewart was playing injured and basically was suffering. The Blaze came out far more interested and far more motivated than they have than I've ever seen them under Mark Lefebvre, and that includes last season. They definitely looked like they had a point to prove, and some people have said, "Oh, Gertson's come in and we've been hammered by Cardiff and lost up in Sheffield, and Rory Rawlick took a silly penalty that night, and Gertson didn't say anything publicly." But I think that the change was needed. I was very vocal about it on Twitter, as you know, about my views on Mark Lefebvre's style and the Blaze this season. And I think that the game against the Panthers will be an interesting measuring stick for the effect that the changes had so far, because Gertson will have now had a week and a half to impose things and get movement going.
I mean, obviously Blaze have been having a tough time of late, and it's obviously seen the departure of Mark Lefebvre. Do you think that they should probably continue with Gertson in charge and give him that chance, or do you feel it would actually be better if somebody, a new coach, did come in and just take over for the rest of the season?
I can see the arguments for both, to be honest, because Gertson came in briefly for Sheffield last year, and obviously Mike Egener's in there as well alongside him, and they're both, we're told anyway, very respected in the dressing room, and we've seen the effect Gertson had on his team as Sheffield captain as well. So, his leadership abilities, to me, aren't in question in the way that someone like Lefebvre was. But there is the argument, and I've been very vocal about it, that the Blaze have been stuck in a rut recently of their own making. There is definitely has been a culture over the past few years in Coventry of jobs for the boys, and the coaches that have come in have been appointed by the owners, and I think that the ownership behind, and I'm being careful what I say because I know I'm going to get stick for this because I've said it before, but I think that there are influences behind the scenes, and I think what the new coach in Coventry needs to do, whether that is Stephen Gertson or whether the Blaze do decide to bring a new coach in, is be a coach who can turn around and say to the backroom staff and to the players, "You are my team, you work for me," if that makes sense, and basically change the culture by sheer force of personality.
Of course, the Blaze had a pretty decent start to the season by winning a few games, and then went on a pretty poor run where I think they lost something like 6 on the trot. You were very vocal when Blaze were on their winning run and got a lot of stick about it by saying, this can't continue because they seem to be riding the netminder Brian Stewart, and it sort of came to pass really. But then you were still getting stick even when you were saying, well, I said this would happen. Did you feel that it was fair?
I feel that, and obviously you'll have experienced this, and you'll have mentioned this in the show tonight, that if you put yourself out there and have a view on a team, you're bound to get people who disagree.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I do feel that in Coventry in particular, there is very much a culture of towing the party line.
Mm.
And I think that a lot of the stick from that was come out, and it wasn't helped by certain members of the Blaze organisation also joining in, and I felt trying to present me in a certain fashion.
Mm.
I'm obviously being very careful what I say here, because I don't want to, come across as sound bitter and have the people saying whatever they said and due to recent history and whatever else. But I think that I was saying what a lot of people didn't want to hear, even though it was happening in front of them.
Mm.
And to be honest, I've felt slightly vindicated by the fact that now the Blaze owners have effectively come out and said, yes, we need to change the culture, we've got too comfortable, etc., etc., etc. And I'm sat there thinking, well, I've been saying that for years, and the amount of stick I've got for it from figures within the Blaze organisation, fans, and figures who have relationships to the Blaze organisation, but on the other hand, I've had other people connected to the Blaze organisation tell me privately, keep going, you're right.
Mm.
And it's just hard to say, because I don't want to, unlike some people, I don't want to go out and say, oh, this person said this to me.
Yeah.
So listen, it's not just me saying it, it's this player, or it's this person, or it's whoever else.
Yeah.
So, and it's tricky that way, but, I'm big enough and ugly enough to take that stick. I'm used to it, so...
Yeah. Because, I mean, some might say that you do sometimes bring it on yourself with the more sort of... how can I put this, caustic way that you tweet sometimes, and you have received criticism that's saying that, well, if you're putting that out there, you not deserve, but you should expect to get something back. Is that also fair?
It's fair in the sense that I look at it, and I think the problem that people have, and I think this is a British hockey problem as well, and I think you're experiencing it in a slightly different way in Nottingham, is that there is kind of the majority view, and I don't think people can accept yet, because obviously most media is either club driven or very fan focused on a particular team. I mean, if you look at most of the best blogs, they all started out at least as being focused on a team. And being focused on the support of that team. So for someone to come out and then turn around and go, I'm just saying how I see it, and I'm going to have a go at the team who some people will turn around and say, oh, but they gave you all these opportunities and whatever else. People probably see me as ungrateful. People see it as biting the hands that feed them, whatever. The way I look at it is, because I like a lot of NHL reporters, and I just look at it as I'm watching the game of hockey and calling the game of hockey as I see it. And that is going to annoy people.
Yeah.
Because British hockey is very insular, and there are certain, if you rock the boat, and I freely admit, as you've said, you say it's caustic, I call it sarcastic, either way. The way I point things will rock the boat. And you would not believe, because obviously a lot of people know, Kerry, my fiance, watches hockey as well, and you would not believe the amount of tweets that haven't gone out, because I've run them by her first, and she's gone, oh no, you're just going to get slaughtered for that.
Yeah.
So I have learned. This is me toned down now. So
fair enough. So we get Wheeler Light then, do we now from now on?
I might do a Wheeler After Dark version. I've released an edited section of all the tweets that didn't get past my filter.
To move it back on to the Blaze to finish off, obviously a lot was made of how well they seem to have recruited and what a good team they look to have on paper. Obviously, it's a very similar team now that goes forward. Is the potential in this Blaze side to actually make a mark on this season within the Elite League?
I think there are still changes needed. I think there are certainly the potential there. I think a lot of people have talked about Jeremy Tendler not performing the way he normally does. I think that is... I did start, and I was critical of him at the start of the season. I think it's the way he's being used. I don't think Mark Lefebvre used him right. He didn't have a setup man. Yeah, with Tendler, I think that Mark Lefebvre tried to change his game, tried to get him playing more two-way, and it affected his game negatively because Jeremy Tendler's a sniper. He is a player who, if you give him the puck in the slot and give him a bit of space, he will score. And he was drifting into position and wasn't being fed the puck because he didn't have players like Andrew Coburn, like Matty Davis, who he had in Hull, with the vision to give him the puck. He was being put on the line with players who, like Karl Bocek and Cale Teneker, who, God love them, aren't the kind of playmaking setup men that someone like Tendler needs. So it'll be interesting to see how Stephen Gertson uses him, put it that way.
Okay. All right, well, I've taken up enough of your time, so thank you very, very much for agreeing to come on and joining us, and I really appreciate it.
No worries, it's been a pleasure.
So the thoughts of Paul Wheeler there. Thanks very much to him for taking the time out to talk to us. If you want to follow him on Twitter, you can find him at Fourth Line Wing. Guys, one of the things we was talking about there, of course, was the sacking of Mark Lefebvre, the Coventry coach, last week. Steve Gertson now in temporary charge. Do you think we'll see a different Coventry side this Sunday than what we saw 3 weeks ago?
In one way, I hope not, because it was a thoroughly enjoyable game, and I'd love the intensity to be there just as it was then. But I with my head, I would say yes. I think we would. It'll be interesting. The whole Gertson, Egner combination, for me, Gertson didn't do fantastic when he was, thrust in at Sheffield, shall we say. For me, Coventry have a good roster. They've obviously got players like Tendler, who hasn't, performed to the level that he has done previously with the Stingrays. Stewart, the netminder, seems to be a real good find for them and has saved them on many occasions this season. Then they've obviously got players on the blue line like Smith from Cardiff, etc. So they've got a good roster, and I just think they have obviously underperformed massively, and it's cost the coach his job. So you just never know, do you, with a new coach? Obviously, they bring in new ideas. It kind of gives the club a lift. So maybe we'll be in for a tougher game than what we had, but what I do think will have changed from the Coventry Blaze point of view will be their discipline, because I think under Lefebvre, that's something that they lost. So I imagine Gertson will be installing the fact that you need your players on the ice to win games.
Andy, of course, Coventry this weekend losing quite heavily at home to Cardiff Devils 8-3, and then taking the Steelers to overtime on Sunday, losing 3-2 eventually at the Motorpoint Arena. So, even sacking the coach, they still only got 1 point out of 4 through, admittedly, 2 tough games. Do you think they can come into Nottingham and get anything?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. At the end of the day, a lot gets made about the whole Sheffield-Nottingham rivalry, and that's another story. But to me, Coventry are the rivals. They are the big game that I look forward to. And I'm sure it's the big game that a lot of Coventry fans look forward to, and the players as well. So absolutely they could come to Nottingham and get something out of it. Like you say, they managed to take Sheffield to overtime at Sheffield on Sunday, and that's without a real week of training under the new systems that Gertsen might have, or new ideas and new plays and stuff like that. So, I think we'll see a different Coventry in the sense that I think they will be better. I don't think we'll see a particular difference in the style of play that we've seen from Coventry for the past 2 or 3 years. They're going to be aggressive, they're going to be physical, and they're going to forecheck hard because that's what they do. I would like to think, though, that the game will be just as intense as it was at the arena last time we played them, and the outcome the same. Fingers crossed. Okay.
Of course, Saturday night Panthers travel to the most versatile arena. Always a great place to go and watch hockey. But never an easy place to go and pick up points. They do tend to make Hull Arena into a bit of a fortress to the Stingrays. 8th in the league, but coming off a victory on Saturday night at home to the Dundee Stars. So, that's again another game we just cannot take for granted.
No, absolutely. I mean, they've got some really good players as well. Obviously, they've lost a couple. Tandler's obviously gone. Silverthorne's obviously dropped down to the EPO, I think. The coach went, but they've picked up some really good players. That Galbraith has looked handy whenever he's played against us. Meyer scored 2 goals this weekend against Dundee, and they're getting shots away against teams. I was just looking at the stats from Saturday's game. They had 33 shots at home, and if they keep getting shots away in that sort of quantities, they'll be scoring goals. And I think, like a lot of teams that perhaps aren't in the top 5 that we've talked about, so you sort of your Dundees and your Hulls, your Edinburghs and stuff. From what I've seen, they can score goals. It's just whether you can limit that and capitalise on your own chances. And obviously, going into Hull is never easy. We've had some stinkers in Hull before, and we've had stinkers against Hull in our own house. This season being case in point when we lost 6-1 to them. This is a good team, and it's a close league, and they are points that we should be taking. But you can't take anything for granted in this league at all.
We've had our troubles, like Andy has said. It's really becoming an arena that is tough to go to and pick up points. Obviously it was a close game against last time we were there, with obviously Robbo scoring the overtime winner, which was a Challenge Cup game, which we obviously needed the win. So it's not going to be easy. But you like Andy says, you've got to go and get the points. These are games that we need to pick up points. But I think you can never underestimate Hull this season, because we thought that maybe when Cloutier had gone that they might struggle, and I did say that in our season opener, but they've proved me wrong, because like Andy says, they've got some real good attacking players there, and they score goals. So we are going to have to be on our game. Players are going to have to improve from obviously what we saw on Sunday, but I also fully believe that we could go in there and get 2 points, but it's not going to be easy.
Okay, guys, I think we will leave it there for this week. Many thanks for joining us, Andy.
No worries at all, anytime.
Okay, and thanks once again, Mr. Lord.
No problem, Mr. Bullard.
Okay. And many thanks to you for listening. Sorry about ranting earlier, but I had to get it off my chest. But many thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next week.